Hey, what's up everybody? It's Lids, and we're back for some more Gwent, and today we're playing more of the dual casting seasonal event, which is an alternate game mode in which the first special card that we play in our turn, we will play twice. Today we're going to try a new deck using some of the cards that just got buffed in the most recent patch. So let's go give it a look. So today we'll be playing a Monsters White Frost Wild Hunt deck, which is one of the archetypes that got a bunch of buffs in the most recent patch. Basically, we'll apply a bunch of frost, dealing damage to our opponents, and boosting our units in the process. We'll either start with Nithral for damage, the Apiarian Phantom for boosts, or Naglfar's crew to set up some frost. Then once we have some frost going, we'll use the Ancient Foglet to get boosted from that frost, and get boosted whenever we play frost in the future, which is going to be one of the primary strengths of this deck, making the Ancient Foglet a huge engine. Because we can play Ard Gaeth twice, giving us tons of frost and tons of boosts on the Foglet, which will also summon the Winter Queen from our deck, and with her new ability, because we have Devotion, when both players pass, if there is still frost remaining on our opponent's side of the board, then the Winter Queen will get boosted based on how much frost there is, which makes her an amazing card for tempo passing because very rarely do people realize just how much of a boost this will often give her. She's basically Ryogon for monsters. Then in round 3 we'll play another Ancient Foglet to go along with more frost, use our echoed copies of Ard Gaeth for even more frost, use Eredin to increase the damage of the frost, and then finish with the Wild Hunt Navigator, which will give a unit a boost based on how much frost there is on our opponent's side of the board, which we can then replay with Red Riders, giving us even more boosts and even more frost. Not to mention Auberon, which, because we have Devotion, will be fully evolved by round 3, which we can also use to play another Wild Hunt Navigator. And because we still have the provisions for it, and we have Devotion, why not throw an Unseen Elder into the equation? Sure, he doesn't really fit the archetype, but he gives us more damage. And there's always room for more damage. That, and we have the Old Speartip Asleep, plus Old Speartip combo as well. So there's a look at the deck, and like I said, it's a combination of applying tons of frost on our opponent's side of the board to deal damage, while simultaneously boosting our cards based on how much frost we give them. So how effective is this archetype, especially after the most recent patch? I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. So let's go see it in action. Alright, so going up against Scoia'tael here, and we'll go first. Okay, so we have Auberon, and we have Ancient Foglet, which is great. We also have a few ways to put some frost on the board. Predatory Dive, probably not the best when we're on blue coin, and Wild Hunt Warrior is one of our weakest cards, so let's get rid of this, and let's get rid of this, and then let's get rid of the Aen Elle Conquerer, which is another one of our weaker cards. So I suppose we'll start with the Apiarian Phantom. They'll go Ragnarok, which is interesting because it is, in some ways, the closest thing they can do to imitating our frost. So let's go with Naglfar and see what we get. We definitely do not want the Winter Queen because she's going to get summoned out from our deck anyway. We could deliberately play you here and have you summon Old Speartip, but let's play you in the range row, and then on the second time round, okay, well, we'll use Parasite to boost the Apiarian Phantom, which at least means that it will hang on for a few more turns here. I suppose it was going to get boosted at the end of our turn anyway, so it would have survived at least one more turn. Okay, then it's Francesca. We'd like to get rid of her, which we can do with Hideous Feast if we're willing to also use the Apiarian Phantom's Order ability, which honestly may be worth doing on this occasion, since Francesca giving them another special card is quite powerful. So let's go for it. Okay, then it's a Phoenix. So now they're looking for carryover. Though the thing is, they still have yet to put up much in the way of points here. So let's take this opportunity to play the Ancient Foglet, and since we do not yet have any frost on the board, it does not get any boosts yet, so let's make sure that we use our stratagem on you. But technically speaking, it is still in removal range. So you could make a case in that situation to deliberately use a leader ability charge, just get a little more frost on the board and get more of a boost on this Ancient Foglet. We're on a Runestone. Turns into an Elven Seer. Which turns into Nature's Rebuke. And that was the fear, was that they would start with Nature's Rebuke, get 2 copies of that, and be able to take out the Foglet. Little surprised they're targeting the Apiarian Phantom here. We have a big enough lead that perhaps we may be able to get by with just the Wild Hunt Warrior here. Using that, hit the Elven Seer, getting some Frost on the board and boosting up the Ancient Foglet in the process. And if we were concerned that they might play a Nature's Rebuke directly from their hand, get 2 copies of it, and try to take out the Ancient Foglet, once again, we could play it a little bit safe and use a Leader Ability Charge to get you up to a 12. They'll go Force Protector. And so yes, that is exactly what they were trying to do. So good thing that we took that Leader Ability Charge opportunity there. Otherwise, they would have been able to get rid of the Ancient Foglet. So we now have a 17-point lead, soon to be 19 once the Frost damages one of these cards. So we could justify passing here, because these are all really strong cards that we have right now. So it's a little bit greedy. Otherwise, we could play a Red Riders, get more Frost on the board, start dealing damage to this Force Protector as well, and boost up our Ancient Foglet in the process, and get the Winter Queen out from our deck. But if we could have all those things saved for round 3, that'd be pretty awesome. Rare opportunity, so perhaps we try going that route and dare them to try to catch us here. It's Sorceress's Oblathana, which is a strong card, yes, but it is not powerful enough to catch us by itself immediately. Not to mention, you put it in the row with the Frost in it, so it gets damaged, and it now can no longer use that ability, so now they're in serious trouble. Okay, they'll go Orb of Insight. So they should use on the Sorceress to at least get her high enough so that she can use her order. Even that is not yet enough. With her order, that gives them a Bountiful Harvest. Now, of course, they've already played a bunch of special cards. They're only getting 1 copy of this, that means. And the Elven Seer is a good target for an Orb of Insight. So that'll give them more copies. So that may now have given them enough. So that was looking really rough for them for a second there, but now they're getting all those Orb of Insights out of their graveyard, and that's not really the time they want them to trigger, because now it's overkill. So they do win round 1, but they go 2 cards down to make it happen. Okay, so we draw into Unseen Elder, which is great. Gels, also very nice. And Winter Queen, which we definitely want to keep in our deck, so let's get rid of her. And Ard Gaeth is the card that I was going to use Gels to get. In fact, we have all of our Wild Hunt special cards in our hand right now, so that means Ard Gaeth is actually not even necessary with Gels. So they do need to play a card if they want to use the Phoenix and maintain the carryover, which they do activate, so they are playing when they're 2 cards down. They'll start with Simlas, and with that, go with Orb of Insight. Did they not play one of those in round 1? So I think we just saw they only got 1 out of their deck. Which means suboptimal here. Yes, it's a decent tempo play, but we can actually get pretty awesome tempo as well if we go with Gels into Ard Gaeth. Get a bunch of Frost on both rows, because that will, of course, deal damage to these guys, and we might even want to use a Leader Ability Charge to move one of them into the range row, but that might not be necessary, because when we pass here, we'll get the Winter Queen out, and her ability will give her a ton of boosts once they pass. So even though it looks like they're in the lead, they very much are not. Okay, and this hand is almost perfect. One exception being that we would like to have Eredin if we could get him. Nithral is decent, but probably not as good as Eredin, so we could try swapping him out, or alternatively, the Naglfar's crew. A Predatory Dive, definitely not what we're looking for, though. And Aen Elle Conquerer, probably suboptimal as well. But let's start with Nithral. And they'll use their leader ability here to get Denna on the board. Then they'll go with Oak Critters, which will proc her Harmony. Now let's use Ard Gaeth to get a bunch of Frost on the board, because now that means on our next turn we can play Ancient Foglet safely, because it will have enough of a boost that it should be out of removal range. And we can use Nithral, which unfortunately is only going to deal 1 damage since we do not currently have Dominance, but that should change soon. Okay, then it's Bountiful Harvest. into a seer. And they'll get some more Vinsights out here as well, which, with the seer on the board, is good timing for them. And a Whisper of Dol B'Thana. Okay. A little odd that they chose not to use Orb of Insight on that Elven Seer, but maybe that means they have another one in their hand. We actually saw them play a bunch with Simlas, and some in round 1 as well, I think. Some of those may have come from Sorceresses of Dol B'Thana, but I think they may be out of Orb of Insight, so that seems like an odd choice there. But as I was saying, now it is a much better time to use the Ancient Foglet, because it is much safer to play it, since it'll get the boost from all this frost. And now that means we have Dominance once again, so we can try to hit this Elven Seer. Okay, then it's Nature's Rebuke, which is enough to get rid of Nithral, but he's honestly not that important to us. The bigger deal is that we will maintain our Ancient Foglet here, which also means it should be relatively safe to play the Unseen Elder, which of course we want to do on the early side, so he has more time to apply Bleed. Unfortunately, they do have a lot of Veiled units, which is going to mean that at times he's going to try to give Bleed to them, but it's not going to work. So instead, let's Bleed this Elven Seer, try to take that out. And there you see the Bleed trying to go on the Whisperer, and it's not going to work since they have Veil. Also meant to use a Leader Ability Charge, just put a little more frost on the board and hopefully get this Ancient Foglet out of removal range. But they aren't going to damage it here, so we should be fine. Okay, they're trying to use Shaping Nature on the Elven Seer. That doesn't work. It needs to be a bronze special card, not a gold one. Otherwise, Elven Seer would be one of the strongest cards in the game. And I deliberately did not try to shut down their Whisperers earlier, because now this row is full and they're running out of space. But as I was saying, the amount of Veil is certainly adding up here. So now let's use Ard Gaeth again, because with that, we'll get even more frost and tons more boosts for the Ancient Foglet. Okay, then it's another Whisperer. So yes, the rows are going to get extremely full. It's just, I really wish they didn't have Veil. So now what we do is we play the Wild Hunt Navigator, and because we have Dominance, that means that we will boost a unit based on the total amount of frost on our opponent's side of the board, which, in case you haven't noticed, is a lot. Technically speaking, it does mean that we should use a Leader Ability Charge before doing that stuff. Although, as I was saying, it was kind of nice having some of their rows completely full. And then it's another Whisperer. How many Whisperers do they have? And now what we do is we use Red Riders, and rather than just spawning frost on both rows, we'll spawn some frost, but also replay one of our Wild Hunt units, because we can do that to increase the frost, and replay the Wild Hunt Navigator, which will give a boost to the Ancient Foglet, but once we replay you, we can give a huge boost to another unit on our side, and then we can do the same thing here, to again increase the duration, and replay you, and this time, boost you. And these numbers are going to get pretty big. Then it's Salve, and with that, you'll get a lot more of those Whisperers on the board, and as I was saying, they're running out of space here. But also, we can go with another round of Red Riders here. We could get the Aen Elle Conquerer down there first and start putting some boosts on that so we aren't getting super tall units, because of course if this last card is an Eredin or Geralt of Rivia, then that's going to be pretty painful, but even if that is the case, we should still be able to make do. And technically it's worth more points to use Red Riders and Auberon, which we'll talk about in just a minute, before playing Aen Elle Conquerer, because every turn that we wait is a couple of frosts less for us to do the boosting. So let's go Red Riders. Apply the frost, replay you, and do it again. And their last card is covered up by the GG screen, but it's Herald Gord for 17 points. And of course, that was a decent point slam, but we can use Auberon here, and you might have been wondering why I deliberately played him at the end of the round rather than early when he could boost the other Wild Hunt units, and that is because if we play him, obviously we've already won, but I want to show you the reason for this. It would have given us another one of the Wild Hunt Navigators, so we could do even more of the boosting based on the total amount of frost on the board, but alas, they forfeit. Alright, so going up against Nilfgaard here, and they'll go first. Okay, so we have our Foglets. Those are going to be one of our key engines. And then Eredin, which will help us increase our damage. Wild Hunt Warrior is probably our weakest card, so let's get rid of that. Ard Gaeth is fantastic. Let's get rid of the Aen Elle Conquerer. That's probably one of our other weaker cards. Okay, they'll start with Johnny. And we will immediately destroy him with Predatory Dive, because he has a lot of damage potential if he were to stay on the board. Okay, then it's Assimilate coming up next. And Assimilate is pretty strong in this event, but I think let's go with an Ancient Foglet first, just so that we have an engine on the board that we can try to boost up as well. Okay, they're going with a Glara, which does trigger Assimilate, although usually you'd want to play a few more Assimilate cards first. They are going to be able to get rid of this Ancient Foglet, which is unfortunate, but they did have to play one of their better cards to do it at an inopportune time. So let that be a warning that if you play the Ancient Foglet before you get a bunch of frost on the board, then it won't get a big boost, so it could be an easy target for your opponent to remove. So tell you what, I'm actually going to go with Unseen Elder here to maximize the amount of time that he has to dish out some damage with that bleed. Yeah, they're going to put Spying on Unseen Elder, which almost certainly means that they have Terra Nova, who they will use to eventually create a copy of Unseen Elder on their side of the board. However, we do know that they do not have Devotion, so he'll be considerably weaker for them. And now let's do Ard Gaeth, because we'll get 2 rounds of that, which at the end of our turn will give us the Winter Queen. Okay, they're going with an Emissary to give them some boosts, which does take this Mage Torturer out of removal range, although we could use Hideous Feast to destroy this Ard Fiend Heavy Cavalry, which, since it's an engine, is probably worth doing. So let's go for it, even if the damage is a little bit overkill. Okay, then it's Coup de Grace. Okay, I was wondering if that might be their way they were going to get Unseen Elder out here. They can actually make 2 of them, assuming they target him once again with this Coup de Grace as well. But as I was saying, they do not have Devotion, so their Unseen Elders are considerably weaker. And the Ancient Foglet would be our best source of points, but I'm trying to save this because we already played and lost one of them already. So let's go Red Riders here and create frost on both rows, both times, which may seem like overkill because we have more than enough frost already. However, remember that when we both pass, Winter Queen will get boosted based on the amount of frost remaining, which means even though it doesn't look like it, we may actually be in the lead right now. So they will pass, and with a total of 14 turns worth of frost across both of their rows, that means Winter Queen will get boosted by 28 at the end of our turn, if my math is correct, which means we can certainly pass here and win on even. Okay, so we draw into our 2 echoed copies of Ard Gaeth, and then we actually don't want to have Old Speartip in our hand. We would rather have Old Speartip asleep instead. So let's try swapping this out. And Wild Hunt Navigator can actually be a perfect finisher, so let's stick with this. And because we won uneven, we could either push here in round 2, or dry pass and force our opponent to go a card down and give us double last say in round 3. Generally, that is my preference. So I think we'll pass here. They'll go with Shoop Stay Off, which I assume means they're going for Resilience. But they didn't get it. At least not on their first attempt. nor on their second. Odd play there. I would have thought they'd at least have gotten Resilience once, but they'll take the round 2 win. Okay, so we did draw into Old Speartip asleep, so this is the card we were looking for, rather than just the normal Old Speartip. And now that we've drawn into Naglfar, that actually means that we no longer have anything for Gels to tutor for us, so let's actually get rid of this, because we were going to use him to play it anyway. And Aen Elle Conquerer is not great. Auberon obviously is, so let's get rid of you. Okay, they'll start with the Ducal Guard. So, not so surprisingly, more Assimilate, and we know that since they had Shoot, they do not have any duplicate cards in their deck. But now what we can do is, because we do have Dominance, we could go with Eredin here, create some Frost, and that Frost will deal extra damage. And almost take that Ducal Guard out. Okay, they're going to go with Mage Assassin, which, oh, they do not want to be playing that from their hand. And now that we have some Frost on the board, let's use the Ancient Foglet. This is the card that we theoretically could have played in round 1, but since we lost one of them then, wanted to make sure that we saved one for round 3, because this can get humongous, especially if we move you into that range row. Okay, then it's Furcart, which means they will be playing a special card as well. I was a little concerned it might be Tourney Joust. It is just enough damage to get rid of our Foglet. That really stinks. And once again, a lesson that ideally when you play the Foglet, you either make sure you already have enough Frost on the board, or you use your leader ability charges so that it has at least 8 power, so that it is harder for your opponent to remove it. Now let's go with Auberon. And technically, our best Wild Hunt card is the Navigator. This is a finisher, and it's still early round, so we should probably go with the Naglfar's crew in that case. And we'll put this one in the melee row, and put some Frost over here. Okay, they're going with Cantarella. Okay, and well, that Navigator is not going to do them much good. So now let's go with Old Speartip asleep, because we already have at least enough Frost on the board for this next turn. And then it's Scorch, which, oh boy, wow. We had a lot of cards on 6 power, didn't we? Wow. Okay then. Well, in that case, let's use Gels to play Naglfar. And with this, we can either go the damaging route with Nithral, or the boosting route with the Apiarian Phantom. Let's go with Nithral. And then the second time round, now that we've lost Old Speartip asleep, we no longer have a guaranteed way to get Old Speartip outside of this right here. So let's go for it. And that also means we don't have much in the way of good cards remaining in our deck, so if they do try to Coup de Gras on Cantarella, which I imagine they may be about to do, they're gonna be somewhat disappointed. It's Blightmaker now, though. Into Cow Carcass. Okay, so they're trying to poison Old Speartip, not so surprisingly. However, they may not realize that Nithral can actually destroy that Cow Carcass, so we are not at risk of poisoning ourselves here. Now let's get the Frost back. And this is why we really wanted to still have the Foglet on the board, because we would have gotten a huge boost when we did that. But it is still capable of setting up the Wild Hunt Navigator. And if they don't use Coup de Gras on Cantarella here, then we might use Nithral to take Cantarella out, although they're going with Joachim now, so this may become their Coup de Gras target instead. It gives them a big Lydia, with which they'll go the Frost route. So now let's get back to maintaining dominance by using Parasite here to get rid of, or at least significantly weaken, Lydia. And then we'll use Nithral to either destroy Lydia, or perhaps more importantly, we could get rid of Cantarella. I actually don't think they're going to use Coup de Gras on her. I think they're very likely to use it on Joachim instead. So in that case, I'm not sure we can stop Coup de Gras, so we might as well just go for them. Okay, there's their leader ability, and once again, I'm not sure they're going to be all that impressed. Ard Gaeth does give them more frost, but that isn't going to make a huge difference. Eventually, the frost is probably going to destroy Nithral. There is Coup de Grace, as we expected. So it does mean more Hoakims, and it means this unit coming out here is going to get pretty big. Oh. That Foglet is potentially very threatening. And after this Illusionist got that big Hoakim boost, they actually have dominance, not us right now. So let's go with Ard Gaeth to further increase the amount of frost that they have. We'll use Nithral to get rid of that Ancient Foglet. Okay, then it's their last Coup de Grace, and once again it's going to be on Hoakim. It does mean they're going to get some big boosts here. Second one, once again on Hoakim. They're going to lock something here, probably Nithral, although it doesn't matter much at this stage. He's about to get destroyed. They actually should go the bleed route in the melee row, which they do. Then that other Hoakim actually protected our Nithral. They shouldn't have played it there. You are not going to have anyone to destroy with Vanamar here, so you're going to play it in the melee row instead to minimize the amount of damage you take from Frost. Okay, so 17 points is the number we have to beat, and we really would have liked to have had Dominance, because that would have made the Wild Hunt Navigator more effective. But actually, what we can do here is if we go White Frost and move one of these guys to the other row, then let's go Wild Hunt Navigator and use it to boost old Speartip up to a 17, and suddenly we do have Dominance, meaning we have more damage with Nithral, which means we are almost in the lead here. But now we go Nithral because we have Dominance, we have the extra damage already, and we use Red Riders. And in this case, rather than getting both rows to have Frost, we go with this option to get some Frost and replay one of our Wild Hunt units. That way, we can replay the Wild Hunt Navigator. And now that we have Dominance, we can give a huge boost based on the amount of Frost on both rows to whatever card we like. And do it again. To replay you again. To give another huge boost, and this time, sure, we'll boost Hoakim. So even after losing several of our best cards, we will still take the win. So there's a look at a new Wild Hunt deck for the new dual casting seasonal event. If you liked the video, then make sure to hit the like and subscribe button and leave a comment down below to let me know which other cards, archetypes, and factions you'd like us to experiment with next. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you next time.